green grass grew all around, and the green grass grew all around. Got it? We do the motions in that second part, okay? And we're going to add them on. And on that branch, and on that branch, there was a nest. There was a nest. It was the prettiest little nest. Was the prettiest little nest that you ever did see. That you ever did see. Nest on the branch on the tree, and the tree in the hole, and the hole in the ground, and the green grass grew all around, and the green grass grew all around. I was a librarian for 32 years, 22 years in the public library and 10 years in the schools, but even before that, I was a storyteller and a folk singer. And so I've gone back to doing a lot of that, and I'm going to mix it together. The stories and the songs and the slides and balloons, all one big, great big salad, and it's all about reading, okay? And I know you're going to enjoy it. And like I said, after the program, the balloons that you see me make, you can ask my wife Vivian or me to make for you. Let's go back about 200 years. That's a picture of the Blue Ridge Mountains, which you guys are fortunate to live very close to. If you lived 200 years ago, you might live in a house like that, a log cabin, and the logs would come from the trees right around you. And you'd put some mud between those logs, and you'd put your house together, and you wouldn't go down to Walmart for your food. You'd grow some corn and some other stuff in your garden, and you'd have some chickens to get your eggs. And for your meat, you might eat a hog, part of a hog that your dad or mom butchered, but most likely, most of the time, you might be eating some food that you went out and hunted. And that's a hunted dog, and he's treeing some animals up there. Might be those raccoons, that's from a separate picture, but might well be. And then you might come home and you might sing about it on your banjo. There's an old song called Old Blue, and it goes like this. I want you to help me sing it. Had a dog and his name was Blue. Had a dog and his name was Blue. Had a dog and his name was Blue. I bet you $5 he's a good dog too. Here's your part. Here, Blue, you good dog. You sing that for me. Here, Blue, you good dog, you. Well, I shouldered my gun and I tooted my horn, gonna catch a possum in the new ground corn. Old Blue barked and I went to see, he'd cornered a possum in a cinnamon tree. Here, Blue, you good dog, you. Here, Blue, you good dog, you. Well, now, old Daniel Boone had a dog named Blue, and he was a good sniffer. He could stick his nose down on the ground here in Cary, and he could smell a raccoon over in Nashville. Well, one day, they were running across a field of tall grass, and old Blue, he was leaping high so he could see where he was going. And one time he leapt up way up high into the air, and when he came down, there was an old sawmill blade hidden there in the grass. He came down right on that sawmill blade, cut him right in two. Front end slid off from the back end just like that. But Daniel Boone was always prepared. He had a little baggie in his pocket with super glue in it. He took some out, he slapped some on the front end, he slapped some on the back end, and then he held them together. Count with me to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Blue was all back together again. He barely missed a heartbeat. He blinked his eyes a couple of times. Whoop, whoop. He barked. He was ready to go. Well, he was almost ready to go. You see, there was one small mistake that Daniel made. He was in such a hurry to get them back together again that, well, you tell me if you know what he did that kind of caused the problem. He put him to, what did he do? He put his tail on upside down. Oh my God, you're thinking that poor hunting dog, aren't you? That's what you're thinking, aren't you? Go ahead and admit it. You're thinking, that dog ain't gonna hunt no more possum, aren't you? Say that. That dog ain't gonna hunt no more possum.
Well, you're wrong. Because you see, old Blue, he was a clever dog, and he was very, very persevering. He learned to run on his front legs. He just watched old Daniel and he copied him. He'd run alongside old Daniel, but he had one advantage. When his front legs got tired, why, he'd just flip over and ride his back legs. That's the story of that.
So it didn't turn out so bad after all. That's old Blue. I'm going to put him over here with these dog books because I'm making him to encourage you to check out some good books about dogs. Now, if you're reading chapter books and you want to read a good old hunting story, and parents, if you want to read one to your kids, try Where the Red Fern Grows, about a boy who has 2 hunting dogs. If you want just a plain old feel-good story, try Because of Winn-Dixie. The girl moves to a new town with her pa, and they live in a trailer. She doesn't know anybody. She feels lonely. One day she's walking around in Winn-Dixie supermarket and she sees a stray dog running all over. And she convinces her dad to let her adopt that dog. She names him Winn-Dixie. And everywhere that dog runs off to, she follows and she meets somebody new. Turns out real well. If you like adventure, Ranger in Time is a new series, pretty easy chapter books, maybe 3rd grade level, about Ranger who goes back in time to different times and places and saves people. Or Stone Fox, which has been around a long time, another real good 2nd, 3rd grade chapter book. And if you're a 4, 5, 6-year-old, I highly recommend the Henry and Mudge series. Raise your hand if you've read any of the Henry and Mudge books. Good. They are fun, aren't they? That Mudge is the cutest dog, but boy, does he slobber. The banjo came to this country from Africa. When black people came to this country, they brought a little banjo with them. There are still, in Africa, there's about 60 different instruments that resemble the banjo, that have a round head with a skin over it usually, and a neck with some strings on it. But now the banjo is used a lot by all kinds of people who like to play mountain music and bluegrass. Now here's an old mountain song, and it's real easy to sing. I wish I was a mole in the ground. Sing it again. Oh, I wish I was a mole in the ground. Oh, you sing great. If I was a mole in the ground, I'd root that mountain down. And I wish I was a mole in the ground. Now, the thing about these old songs is a lot of them were made up by just ordinary people like you and me and your teachers and your mommy and poppy and your grandma and grandpa. So I thought it's always fun to see if we can make up a verse to this song. All you need is an animal and a place that that animal is. Maybe what it does. Who's got an idea for an animal? Okay?
A lion.
Ooh. How about, I wish I was a lion in the den. If I was a lion in the den, what would I do? What would I do if I was a lion in the den?
Hunt for food. I'll bring a zebra in.
I'd what?
I bring a zebra in.
Bring a zebra in. Well, the lion's got to eat, and that rhymes. He's got a good sense of rhyme. Let's do that one. I say go with that one. I wish I was a lion in the den. Oh, I wish I was a lion in the den. If I was a lion in the den, I'd bring a zebra in. And I wish I was a lion in the den. Let's try one more. Anybody else? What's that? Monkey, yeah. Our cousin there, looks like he could tell you a story, couldn't he? What about those guys? I don't know what story they would tell. Well, I've got a story about a monkey. It's been around a long time in a picture book version by Paul Galdone, and we've got it up here. You can check it out afterwards. So there was this monkey. He was a really curious monkey, kind of like Curious George. And he was out there one day, out on his tree, swinging around and eating a banana. And up the river came a crocodile. So he said to that monkey, he said, well, how's that banana taste? Oh, the monkey said, it's good. Crocodile said, I bet you it's not as good as a mango. And Mango said, monkey, what's a mango? He said, a mango is the most delicious fruit in the entire world. He said, you haven't lived until you have tasted a mango. Well, he said, where can I get one of those? He said, well, just so happens there's an island up here a little ways, and there's a mango tree on that island. I'll take you over there. Well, you think that's a good idea? Probably not. Crocodile might eat a monkey. He said, you're not going to eat me, are you? He said, oh, no. He said, trust me. He said, I'm a vegetarian. No. It seemed pretty good for a while he was just riding along on that crocodile. I'll paint him up in just a minute. But they were riding along, going through the water. They went through the shallow part, and that was okay. He said, Mr. Crocodile, this is a pretty nice ride. Thank you for taking me along. But then they got to the deep part of the water, and when they got to that deep part, suddenly the crocodile dove down, swam along at the bottom of the stream, and that old monkey, he couldn't breathe. Finally, the crocodile came up to him. Oh, he said, Mr. Crocodile, what'd you do that for? He said, you nearly drowned me. Well, said the crocodile, first I'm going to drown you, then I'm going to eat you. Eat me, he said. You told me you were a vegetarian. He said, I lied.
He thought, and he said, Mr. Crocodile, he said, I wish I'd known that you wanted to eat me, because if I did, I would have brought my heart along with me. You what? Said the crocodile. Said, I left my heart back there in the tree. I would have brought it if I knew you were going to eat me. Well, let's go get it, said the crocodile. Oh, said the monkey, you sure you don't want to take me to that mango tree first? He said, no, let's go get your heart. Back they went, back to that island. Monkey got off, climbed up that tree. You reckon he went back to where that crocodile was? No, sirree, Bob. He said, bye-bye, Mr. Crocodile. I fooled you. I had my heart right here all the time. Give him a couple of eyes. Give him a little mouth. Kind of a big mouth, to tell you the truth. Give him a little red tongue, and he'll be ready to go. Does anybody recognize that gorilla with a kitten? Gorilla named Koko, right? A real gorilla, and Koko has had several kittens for pets. The first one's name was Ball. Called her Ball because she was like a ball of fur. And Koko speaks about 200 or 300 words in sign language, and when Ball died, he was really upset and told his keeper all about it, and they got him another kitten. That's Koko. Going back to the stories about trickster heroes, there's Anansi from Africa, there's Br'er Rabbit from the United States in the South, and there's Cooey the guinea pig from South America, from the Andes Mountains. Lots of funny tricks that Cooey plays on Tio Antonio the fox. The very end of the book, he goes to work for the farmer, and he goes out stealing his alfalfa at night, and the farmer catches him with his sticky doll, ties him up, and he's going to cook him up the next day. But Tio Antonio the fox comes along, and he says, Cooey, what are you doing there tied up? He said, the farmer wants me to marry his daughter and eat roast chicken every day. You look at that bottom picture, you see all those people holding onto that rope? Looks kind of like a tug of war at field day, right? That's how they got those big sails up in the ship. They pulled on those ropes. Now they pulled all together, and I want you to try this with me, okay?
All of you kids and adults who want to do it, everybody stand up. We're going to pretend we're at field day for a second, okay? They have a word in which they would all pull at the same time, and that word is Joe, okay? So you guys get ready, and when I say the word Joe, you're all going to pull like we're pulling on that rope to get the sail up, okay? You ready? When I was a little boy, my mammy always told me to be way, haul away, and we'll haul away, Joe. If I didn't kiss the girls, my lips would soon grow moldy to me. Way, haul away, and it's haul away, Joe. Way, haul away, and we'll haul from better weather, and it's way, haul away, and we'll haul away, Joe. Way, haul away, and we'll haul away together, and it's way, haul away, and we'll haul away, Joe. Once I was an Irish lad, a digging turpentine, he soon be way, haul away, and we'll haul away, Joe. Now I'm on a Yankee ship, hauling at the braces to be way, haul away, and we'll haul away, Joe. And it's way, haul away, and we'll haul away, Joe. Good job. I think you got those sails all raised up. That's how they pulled those sails up. Aha. How I became a pirate. We'll start out with some funny pirate stories. How many of you have read that book? Oh, wow. Woo, that's a very popular one. Yeah, it sure is. Let's see. Well, I'm going to make a little pirate sword here. And if you like this, you can get one afterwards. Yep, we'll make the handle first. Pirates are interesting. Kids love to hear stories about pirates, but of course they're about make-believe pirates, not the way pirates really are. But that's okay, because one of the main things we do with reading, and you guys probably study this in school, they ask you, what are the three purposes of reading? Is it for entertainment, or is it to teach, or is it to persuade? Well, those funny stories are just written to entertain. They're not really meant to teach or to persuade you of anything. Just to entertain you. And here's a little pirate sword to entertain yourself with your friends. It's not very dangerous, right? You wouldn't do much damage with this sword, would you? But it's fun to have, and you can have one if you like when we're all done, folks. This little boy is out playing in the sand one day, and he's digging up sand, and the pirates come by because they need someone to dig up to bury their treasures. So they pick him up and take him on board. Well, it is a good time. He doesn't have to say please. He doesn't say thank you. He can reach across the table. He can shout. He can have lots of fun. He even gets to have a pillow fight before bed. But the catch is, he likes to be tucked in by his mommy, and pirates don't tuck. Not only that, they won't read him a book to go to bed with. He decides maybe this pirate life is not for me. He says, I'm leaving, I want to go back home. But he says, well, I said I'd help you bury the treasure. I'll show you a great place to bury the treasure. Where did they bury it? In his backyard, that's right. Here's my favorite one, though, Edward and the Pirates. Not quite as funny, but kind of funny in a quiet way. You see, Edward loved to read, and when he would read, he would feel like he was right in the story. That's one of the great things about reading. Why, he'd read about Joan of Arc, that he was defending her. He'd read that he was sliding down the rope to help out Robin Hood. Yeah. And one day he was over at the library, and there were some men watching him. He didn't see them. What kind of men were they?
Pirates.
They were pirates, exactly. And that night they showed up in his bedroom. And you know what they wanted? They wanted his book. He had a book about buried treasure. They said, come on, give us your book. He said, He said, I checked that out of the library with my library card. You want that book, go to the library and check it out yourself. Well, they said, listen, we'll give you some buried treasure if you let us have that book. Nothing doing. They said, listen here, you're going to have to walk the plank if you don't give us that book. Pirate captain pulled out his sword. He said, you better watch it, you're going to wake my mommy. Sure enough, in comes his mom, looking a lot like Joan of Arc. But now, of course, you older kids, and maybe some of you younger ones, know that real pirates weren't quite as nice as the pirates in those books. They attacked a lot of ships, and they stole stuff, and when they didn't give it to them real quick, they'd kill them and take it. One of the fiercest, maybe the fiercest, was Blackbeard. He was called Black because of that beard, and if you look close, you'll see this smoke coming out of his head. What he used to do to look scary was he'd put some slow-burning fuses into his beard. This is a true story. And when he would be attacking, people would see this crazy guy with smoke coming out of his head, and the idea was they'd surrender quicker, right? And they often did. Here's the sign for grow. A seed under the ground, here's your hand, it's the surface, comes up. Gonna make this garden grow, turns into a flower, okay? Inch by inch and row by row. Gonna make this garden grow. Get yourself a hoe in your hand. All I need is a rake and hoe, some more sign language, and a patch of fertile ground. What is that?
Dirt.
Next part starts the same. Inch by inch and row by row. Get a big sack of seeds. Hold it up with this hand. Reach in with your other hand. Get a handful and scatter it out. Please bless these seeds I sow. Please warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. Okay? Now let's see if you can do your part with me playing the guitar. You ready? Inch by inch and row by row, flower grow. Gonna make this garden go rake and hoe. All I need is a rake and hoe and a patch of fertile ground. Inch by inch and row by row, sowing seeds. Please bless these seeds I sow. Please warm them from below till the rain comes tumbling down. You've probably heard about fables, which teach a lesson. There's another kind of story that's sort of like that. We call it a wisdom tale. It's maybe doesn't say what the lesson is usually, but you can see what the lesson is. And I want to tell you a wisdom tale that comes from China. In this book, it's called The Empty Pot. And it's about a man who was the emperor. Raise your hand if you know what an emperor is or was. Okay. Kind of like a king, but even more powerful. And in China used to be ruled by emperors. Whoops. By emperors. And this emperor was getting very old. He was going to die, and he didn't have any children. Didn't have a son or a daughter to pass on being an emperor to. So he thought, well, how am I going to pick somebody who will be the next emperor? Who would be a good emperor? He thought, I don't know. And then he was sitting out in his garden one day, and he loved plants so much. He said to himself, I know, I'll let the plants decide who's going to be the next emperor. Now, that may sound kind of weird to you. Could you hold that for me? And so I'll tell you what he meant. He put out word that he wanted all the boys and girls in China who would like to be the next emperor to come to his palace and see him. And when he got there, he said to them, I'm looking for the next emperor, and here's how I'm going to decide. I'm going to give each of you a flower seed. And you take that flower seed home and do the best you can to grow a flower with that seed. Now, he said, you've got to use that flower seed so it'll be fair. There was one boy there whose name was Pink, and he just loved the garden. He was the best gardener. He put in that seed in some rich soil, and then he watered it, and he weeded it, and he came out every morning to see if he could see his plant peeking up out of the ground. So every morning he came, and every morning he saw the same thing. There was nothing growing. He changed the dirt out. He thought, maybe I don't have good enough dirt. And he got a bigger pot, but he got the same results. Nothing would grow. Well, the little boy was feeling really discouraged. He thought to himself, maybe I should get another seed. Well, what do you think? Should he get another seed? The emperor said to use that one. You think it'd be okay to kind of switch the seeds? No, he didn't think so either. He thought, well, he said to use that seed, and I've done my best, he said. I'll just have to take him this. Well, in about 3 months' time, it was time to go back to the emperor and show him what they had. When he got to the emperor's palace, all these boys and girls were arriving, and they had the most beautiful plants. There were flowers with red and yellow and orange and pink and magenta and purple flowers, beautiful flowers. And what that little boy had was an empty pot. An empty pot. He felt ashamed. He felt embarrassed. He saw all those boys and girls with beautiful flowers, but he went and he just stood there, and in a little while the emperor came out to the courtyard where all the boys and girls and their parents were gathered. And you know, he looked out at all those beautiful flowers, and you'd think he would have been smiling, wouldn't you, to see such beautiful flowers? But he wasn't. He was frowning. Just like that. Until he saw that little boy with that empty pot. When he saw the little boy, he smiled. He went over to him. He said, "What happened? Why don't you have a flower in that pot?" The little boy explained. He said, I put in the seed, I put in good soil, I watered it, I weeded it. He said, I tried my best, but nothing would grow. The emperor nodded his head. He put his arm around that little boy, and the two of them turned around and they faced everybody, and he said, "This will be the next emperor of China." You know what had happened? Anybody know why he did that? He said, "I don't know where the rest of you got your seeds." He said, "The seeds I gave you were boiled. None of them would grow," he said. "You must have all the rest of you gone and gotten another seed like I told you not to do." This is the only boy who followed instructions, who was honest and hardworking, and I'm sure he's going to make a fine emperor. And that little boy grew up to be a kind and just and very wise emperor. And that is the story of the empty pot. Now let me ask you a question. That's what's called a wisdom tale. What's the wisdom in that? What do you suppose that tale is trying to tell us? To be truthful. And there I am at my friend Wagatsama's house way up in the country. Does that look like me? It doesn't, but that's me 50 years ago. That's me in 1970, 48 years ago. And I'm smashing some soybeans. And that's a little neighborhood festival. They're doing an old dance with those strange masks on, and a woman and her baby in the crowd watching them. That's my friend Wagatsama with me. We're at Deer Park. The deer are tame. There are many beautiful, beautiful parks there. And there I am in the Japanese Alps, and I stayed in a little cabin overnight and talked with that girl in Japanese with my dictionary. Met lots of friendly people there. It's wonderful to travel around to different countries and cultures, and you know, if you can't do it yourself, taking a plane or a train, you know how you can do it? Come to the library and read a book. Gonna tickle my funny bone. Gonna zap my scary zone. I'm gonna read all the summer through. Here's how it goes. I'm gonna amplify my mind. I'm gonna open up my heart. I'm gonna make every day feel new. Tickle my funny bone. I'm read all the summer through. There you go. Now there's a clapping part in the verses. And when I go like this, that's for you to clap with that, okay? I'm gonna read my way around the world at the public library, at the public library, at the public library. I'm gonna read my way around the world at the public library. Read all the summer through. Clap along with that. I'm gonna excerpt out my mind. I'm gonna open up my heart. I'm gonna make everything new. Tickle my funny bone. I'm gonna tickle my funny bone. I'm gonna back my series on. I'm gonna read all the summer through. I'm gonna put on a cape and fly to France with Captain Underpants, with Captain Underpants, with Captain Underpants. I'm gonna put on a cape and fly to France with Captain Underpants. Read all